It's a misrepresentation to say that the media has characterized her that way.
You have to let her talk, and there was a reason why they had made sure that she was embargoed.
Women are the key to these elections.
This is where the media is doing its job.
These are the changes that we need.
What we're talking about in terms of sexual liberation has absolutely nothing to do with feminism. I mean, the feminism that started in the 1960s was about women taking back their sexuality after, from the beginning of time, other people saying what should happen to their bodies, and other people owning their bodies. It was about women learning about their own pleasure.
He cannot win unless he attracts all of those 18 million cracks in the glass ceiling that Hillary Clinton talked about.
Keira Knightley is essentially giving young women the permission to stand up in their local communities, in their schools, in their families, and say, look, this is the way I look and it's okay.
We're concerned that this is just a simple, nonpartisan letter asking where she stands in the issues, just her as Governor Palin, and that we have not heard and they don't want to let us in to even drop it off.
Are we going to invest in Americans so they can compete globally with education and health care?
That our country needs to reform immigration is no question. It's a broken system.
Part of the know-nothingism and the resentment of elitism is the fact that many people know how poorly this educational system has served them, whites and African Americans.
We are a community that is disproportionately impacted, for example, by poverty. So when you have these stressors of the economy, of poverty, all weighing down on you, it becomes very difficult to maintain relationships.
What you find is that these are individuals that fled communism. You have Hugo Chavez, you have Fidel Castro, you have the Colombian Marxist guerrillas, and in Central America you have the Sandinistas. So it is relevant. But what Barack Obama needs to do is break away from that, talk about the economy, and also talk about his own immigrant experience.
You can't say, as a progressive person looking at this campaign, that she knocked it out of the ballpark. I mean, everybody thought she gave a great speech, but you don't ignore her either. I mean, clearly she's a woman who has accomplished a lot. She's elected governor of Alaska, but the thing to focus on is the campaign.
They've already said, oh, we're not going to speak to Iran, we're not going to speak to North Korea. And I mean, how do we move forward in engagement and policy and becoming part of the world and having the world become part of this country as well if we aren't going to speak to them? We need leaders to get out there and engage.
We need to be serious about these matters right now. The situation is too dire in this country. The economy is tanking in so many ways, and women are the prime losers.
When women go ahead and say that they want to serve their country, they should not have to only worry about the enemies on the battlefield and also worry about enemies in their own barracks. They shouldn't have to be put in that position. When we see this sort of situation exacerbated not only with race but also recently murders, this is something that we really need to call our attention to.
By reclaiming the word, trying to take ownership, we are doing what I think moms for generations have told kids to do when a bully calls them a name. Essentially, either walk away or say, so what?
With the Japanese Americans, because of internment, so many of them lost the right to vote, and they do vote in higher proportional numbers. So from a historical standpoint, in certain populations, it does really well, but for other populations, people still feel somewhat disenfranchised or just not familiar with the voting process.
This was a watershed moment for Latino politics everywhere, and it was a personal vote because of all the anti-immigration sentiment and rhetoric that people have been feeling. Folks went to the polls. I mean, my grandmother voted for the first time last night, as did my 25-year-old cousin. So it's cross-generational. And what we're finding, too, is that they basically helped open up the pathway for Obama.
And it's very interesting how people say, we've reached the post-racial moment because we have a black president-elect. So we've both marked it, even as we're denying it. I mean, this is quite a conundrum, isn't it? I mean, that again, he is black, and therefore we are no longer seeing black. I mean, and I think that this is, this constructs one of the problems he's going to have to face, which is really dealing with the fact that we are still a very racially divided nation.
The truth is we're living in an increasingly multicultural country, an increasingly multicultural world, and it becomes a critical survival skill to know how to establish good relationships with people from other backgrounds. And so I think that all of this becomes increasingly important as the world becomes more global and more international.
Same arguments were made against minimum wage, family leave, civil rights laws, fair housing, you name it. The truth is everyone gets sick. Not everyone has the right to get well. You don't want to be served flu with your food. We need paid sick days for everybody.
More couples are having to share the economic responsibilities and working. More households right now have 2 people actually working full time. You've got to share the load. There's no way, there's no question in today's economy.
Feminism, in order to be a bona fide movement, has to have certain standards. And I know we've heard some people say, oh, now there's a litmus test for feminism. But I think we do have to have certain definitions of what is and is not feminist. And I think one of the things for me that's so important about feminism is that it's about equal opportunity.
Are we going to respond to this crisis by shrinking inwards with protectionism, or are we going to try to assume leadership with open and orderly policies? And are we going to see this new multipolar financial world as an opportunity, not just as a threat?